Welcome everyone to this new series on building your growth mindset. We have the lovely Charlene today to talk about growth mindset, to talk about her journey into tech, and to talk about growth mindset in general and what her views are on it, and also obviously giving us a tip. So my name is Ekua and I'm a coach at Beyond One Cheerleader. My book is coming out at the end of this month, I'm super excited about, and that book is about using the entrepreneurial journey as a way to learn how to put yourself out there, to fight fear, and get past imposter syndrome, and obviously learn to be one cheerleader. So I would love to talk to Charlene today and ask her a couple of questions. So Charlene, first of all, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic, thank you. Having a lovely day.
Excellent. So the first question is, tell us your story. Where are you from? What do you do? And why do you do it?
So, how far do you want to go back?
Yeah, the
I was
fucking
born in
version.
Nottingham. We've not got that long.
Yeah.
I was born in Nottingham. Grew up there, and it was fantastic. Well, it was all right. I always really enjoyed like maths and puzzles and things like that. And I discovered a computer at school one day, which meant that I could start learning to code. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I just had a go at it. So that was quite fun. My parents also like run companies, and so my dad's got like a software company, my mum has a training company, and they also both used to have loads of involvement in community as well. So I basically became my parents. I went on to study maths and computer science at uni, just because. So I did maths. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I really wanted to do something. I thought I'd go into accounting or something like that. So I was looking at actuary roles and accountancy roles. But unfortunately, when I was at uni, I didn't do very well in my first couple of years. I was very bad. I used to go out maybe every night and just had a really good time at uni. And then third year, I was like, oh my God, I can't waste this. This would be awful. So I started working. And what that meant was, though, that I couldn't apply for any roles until I finished my third year because my grades were so low at the end of second year. So then I had to make a decision, like, what am I going to do? Do I take a year out? Do I start working? Like, what do I do? So I took a computer science master's after having a view of tech roles, like what I could get into. And yeah, from that, I got my first like role in a tech consultancy as a graduate, which was really fun. And now I'm still in tech. That's how I got in. That's my background.
Nice. So tell us about coding black females and how you founded that.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that big part of my life that I was just telling you all about. Um, I think that's why I kind of mentioned the community element of when I was growing up. So Coding Black Females was a community that I started 3 years ago. So I started that because I'd been a developer for about 8 years and I hadn't really met any other Black women in the industry. And I really wanted to. I initially just wanted to meet other Black women, see what they were doing, see whether they'd met other Black women, and just see what it was like. I'd watched Hidden Figures the night before, and
Nice.
I loved it to bits. It was fantastic. And then decided to set up the community that night. I had to do it because I just wanted to share that passion with other people. So I created the community. Initially, like I said, we were just meeting up, and then over the last 3 years, we've just grown. It's amazing. We've got like well over 1,000 members now, and we reached the world. It's like a global movement. Some people call it. I would just call it a community. Movement feels like it's too much, but yeah, like it's a global community now of Black women who are either in tech or want to be in tech. And we put on loads of events, and we do events every 2 weeks, and it's really exciting to just be in the community constantly, like listening to the community, doing things in the community, and anything we can really. And so I think that from quite an early age, that community element was always within me. I used to go to board meetings with my parents and listen to them talk about supporting the community. And even when I was like about 10, me and my friends created a group called the business club, and we would charge people £1 entry to then discuss business, and we would come up with business ideas and try and figure out what we could do in terms of business. And it was very much about like listening to the community and the people around us to try and grow something. And it's been quite fun seeing that. When I look back, I kind of realized that this was where I was going. But at the time, you don't really know where you're going when you're doing it. You just think, oh, I'm doing a bunch of stuff. And when people ask me now, I realize that I've always been on this path, really. So yeah, Coding Black Female is fantastic. Love it. Huge community, and everyone has a really good time in it as well.
Well, fantastic. Well, I just want to pick up you as a bit on starting the community, because a lot of people have trouble starting things up. And you said you were so inspired and passionate to do this. What did you actually do? Did you literally, get on the phone to your friends, or how did you find people to start your community? People would like to know that.
No, so that's what I was going to do. I got home and I was like, let me call my friends who were in tech. And I realized I didn't know any Black women who were in tech. So, and I was like, okay, well, what do I do now? And I'd always been telling people about Meetup as a platform. So I created a group on Meetup, because you can create communities on there using just tags, basically. And those tags, other people have the same tags, and then those groups get recommended to people. So I just created it on Meetup that evening. There was nothing to do other than click create group, fill it out, and then I had a group. And the key thing was to make sure I'd set a date that I wanted the first session, so that I had to then follow through, that I couldn't then say, oh, no, I'm too scared. So I created the group and I created an event like maybe 2 weeks from that date. And the view was just to see who turned up. And if no one came, that doesn't matter, at least I've tried. But if someone comes, then it's been a benefit to the whole idea in itself. So that's how I started it.
So we have to know, did anyone come?
Yes, they did. They all came about half an hour late, and I was sat there freaking out. I was like, what have I done? Like, maybe they're all outside laughing at me. Maybe this is all a joke. But yeah, I had 3 people come, and one of them, she's still in the community now. She runs her own workshops. She comes to other events that we do. She's absolutely fantastic. The other 2, obviously, like, people drop off Meetup all the time, right? But it's really good that people did come, and they've seen the benefit throughout the last 3 years as people that have been with us that entire time and have gained benefits from the community. Don't get me wrong, there have been times I have sat in places and nobody has turned up, and it's actually, sometimes it was quite nice because I really did want to just go home. But other times, you sit there and you're like, okay, no one's here, what do I do? And I just book the next Meetup, I just book the next session and say, it's okay that no one came this time, because they might come next time, and I'll just keep on doing that until people keep on coming, and it worked.
Oh, brilliant! Because you already answered the question that was just literally off my mind. I was going to say, like, what would you advise people if people aren't coming? How soon should they give up? But essentially, you're like, book another one, just keep trying, and just see how it goes. And obviously, you can change your message and ask for more people to get involved. So that is brilliant. So I would love to ask another question, which is about your experience building your career as a Black woman as a software engineer. Because as you said, you didn't see many people. So how has that been for you?
So to be honest, because when I was very young, my dad had a software company, and all my parents' friends were in business and ran businesses. So I was very used to being around Black professionals. I didn't think there was anything that I couldn't do. So I was never, and they'd always say prepared me for the world of work and what it would be like being in environments with a lot of white people who could be racist. Like, they prepared me very, very well for that from a very early age, like from maybe the age of 5. I remember having a conversation about it. So so for me, like, I had that sort of grounding. And then when I got to work, I started, and it was just all right. Like, it was quite nice. I prepared myself for being in an environment that could be very male heavy. So I started watching football, tried to learn the rules. I started drinking beer to understand what that tastes like. But I also, as well as doing that, it was, I mean, don't get me wrong, there were times that it felt lonely, that it felt difficult. I was there sometimes trying to explain something from my background or from my life, and nobody around me would understand, which is just hard sometimes. So to build my career, I don't think there was anything ever holding me back when I was growing, because I always knew that, I had to try and do more if I could in the community. I always knew that I had to try and push myself to just develop my skills and make it all very skills focused. But there were definitely times that it was difficult being the only Black woman in a company, the only Black person representing all Black people sometimes. I experienced racism at times, I experienced sexism at times, probably racism more than sexism, to be honest. But I was used to racism because I grew up in an all-white school, so I was very used to what that was like, and I'd been prepared for it, so I knew about it. But then, yeah, I think it was fine. I think what I tried to do myself outside of my career was surround myself with Black people. So I attended Black professional meetups. So that's where Meetup came in quite big there. And yeah, there were Black professional meetups. There were, what did I do? I studied Black history as well for a while. So about 3 years, I spent a long time studying Black history and Black studies so that I would have a space where we were all on a journey together, learning about ourselves, which was really important to me. And it helped me with my identity and a bunch of stuff. When I was experiencing racism, I then had something I could say back that was fact-based rather than just, that wasn't very nice. So yeah, it really helped.
Oh, amazing. And we've had a question from the audience, which I'm going to put to you, which is 3 years on, and now, you know, in the current climate, do you think there is more Black females in the workplace than before, or do you think it's still lacking? Like, what would be your opinion, your assessment of the current state?
So if I base it on my personal experiences over the last 10 years, I've not seen much of a change, if I'm honest. I think that the difference is now that I know a lot more Black women who are in tech roles just because of coding Black females. So I know that they exist. I don't know that we have the correct representation yet. We definitely don't have the correct representation. I know that much. Whether we're moving in the right direction, I really hope that we are. We're working to move in the right direction. We're working with companies who want to do more, who want to employ more Black women. So we are providing them with the way to do that, you know, with access to the community and with ways to develop more skills in the community, because there's a huge tech skills gap anyway, like broadly. So if we can develop those skills in the community, then we'll naturally have more Black women in tech over time. But I don't feel like I've seen a huge change yet, if I'm honest. But I can see that there's maybe a bit of want there, which is a good thing. We can work with that.
Absolutely. Okay, that brings me neatly to my next question about what kind of skills do you need to be a great software developer, in your opinion?
So to be a good software developer, I think you need, aside from anything else, passion and patience, because it's really trying at times. I think that it's great, obviously, if you're quite technical, if you know problem solving, and if you can do all these other things. But if you're passionate about learning to be a software developer, then you'll put that time in, regardless, and you'll learn what you need to learn. If you're patient, then when you get stuck on the problems, which you're going to face maybe on a daily basis, then you might be able to see it through. Without those things, you could have the best problem solving skills in the world. You could be really good at maths and like love all that stuff, right? But if you're not patient and passionate, then you might struggle to just take things forward. So yeah, I would say that it's probably going to be different to what other people would say, but I know that for me, the thing that's kept me going in my career is it's the fact that I really want it. Like I get so excited by building new software. I love it. Like it's exciting. And the fact that then when I have a problem, I'm able to sit there and be relatively patient without getting angry. Like maybe I've been angry a little bit, like wanting to throw my laptop away, but I think that patience is the thing that, again, that's helped me to keep going. So, because I think that you can come from any background to get in. From what I've seen now, you can come from any background. What I used to see was that you had to come from a tech background because that's what I was used to. But since I've started coding Black females, what I've seen is you can be from any background and get in, but it's the passion that gets people through. And that's what I see. It's the passion overall.
Nice. So, I mean, you've talked about some of the skills that you need, but do you think that communication is a key skill in being a software engineer, in terms of like, it's good to have technical skills and obviously have that mindset to keep learning, but do you think it's also good to be able to kind of speak up and share your ideas and not be the quiet one and think that just because I'm building something doesn't mean I shouldn't speak?
Absolutely. So communication is super important. I'm not saying you don't have to be great at communication to be a good software developer. But I think if you want to have that, if you want to be able to get the most out of that career, communication is fantastic because it means that you can build something and then you can explain it to somebody else, or you can talk to different teams You can discuss their problems, their needs, their user needs, like how they're going to use the system, and then figure out how you can solve it with them by communicating in a language that will help them to understand the tech and you can understand their business. So as much as, you know, you can be in software without necessarily being a great communicator, you could just write code all day and that's fine. Like you might want to do that, but that communication level will give you that edge. So what you tend to see is when people are really good with the communication side as well as the tech, they're the people that are then going out leading the teams and bringing out new ideas and trying to develop more things. So I think communication is key, like in tech. I think it's really cool. Yeah.
Okay, so now that brings us neatly onto another question, which is about the tools that you need for learning, you know, software engineering. Like, can you recommend any boot camps or any particular tools that you use or think are good?
So I think that an overall tool, people should never forget that Google exists. Google is super useful for figuring out the answer to problems. And I say that because you sometimes will be stuck on something and you'll forget that you can just look up the answer online. So Google, ultimately, fantastic. Just know the right Google terms, which I never know. So Google for me doesn't always work because I can never think of the right term. But if people want to get into the industry, there's loads of free resources out there. Some of the good ones, Free Code Camp is fantastic. Code Academy, fantastic. There are loads of boot camps as well. So Coding Black Females are in a boot camp now, which is amazing. So that one would be the number one. But then there's also a few companies that are doing great things. So there's The Jump, who are fantastic, and they are growing at the moment. They've got a great community and they're in it for the right reasons. So it's quite a small company currently. They're going to grow, and I'm really excited about watching them grow. But they're a really good boot camp to get involved in because there's that personal touch there too. And then on top of that, obviously there's the standard ones, so Lewagon, GA, Makers, and all the others. But loads of ways to get in. So many ways to learn to code now. I didn't realize until you ask people for a list, and the list doesn't really end because there's so many ways.
Oh, fantastic. That's really, really good to hear. So I just want to ask you about like getting into like, you know, software engineering or coding. Like, do you think that anyone from any background can do it? Is it a career that anyone can start and they shouldn't be afraid to do so? What would be your advice about, you know, transferring from something completely different? Let's say you were like a lawyer or an accountant, and then you're like, you know what, I want to start in tech, being a software engineer. What would your advice be?
So you can absolutely be from any industry and get in, I think. So what I've seen is recently a lot of career changes. A lot of people who are in particular careers, they find out about how great tech is and they want to get into tech, which I find strange because I'm like, it's just tech though. And they're like a lawyer doing all this sorts of stuff, but they want to be in tech. So we help them get in. But yeah, like what you'll always find is that there's always going to be transferable skills. So for example, there was a talk the other day that we did about cybersecurity, and we were discussing what good careers you could be in beforehand to transition into that. Law would be great for it because of the policy and all that sort of stuff that comes into it. You'll understand that really quickly and it will be really valuable. So there's always going to be transferable skills that you can take into a new career, especially a tech one, because there's so many roles in tech as well. Tech's not limited to coding. Tech is essentially the world now. Like that's how we think now. We're in tech, like that's just life. So there's always going to be a role that you could do in tech that's valuable, and there's always going to be a skill that's transferable. If you want to transition into tech, I would recommend like going to talks, watching podcasts, listening to podcasts, watching like YouTube videos or whatever. Like find out what it's about, like find out what it is, join some groups, join communities, get people to talk about their networks and their communities so that you can really get a feel for where it is that you might fit. And you'll naturally meet other people that are career changers as well, and they'll really support you along the way.
And is there a particular language you think that people should start with, or what would be your thoughts there?
So I think it depends on what it is you want to do. A good language to start with, generally people suggest Python because it's quite easy to start with. What's the other one? JavaScript's also a very good one to get started with. JavaScript is really good because you can be a full stack developer with JavaScript now. Python's really good because you can get into machine learning, data science, that sort of thing with it. So they're really good starter languages, but there's a really good place you can go with them as well. So they're really useful for learning programming concepts and getting started, I would say.
Okay, cool. Well, as we're already talking about learning, let's talk about building a growth mindset. And what does building a growth mindset mean to you, and how have you applied it in your work?
So for me, I think a growth mindset is a bit about your perspective on things that happen to you. So do you see a challenge as something that means you have to stop, or is that something that is a learning opportunity that means you can go on? I see most things as opportunities. So people, when they ask me what my biggest challenge has been, it's one of my hardest questions, because I don't see them as challenges. I just see them as things that came up that meant I had to change direction slightly. So I think for me, like, the way that I've done my growth mindset stuff, I never really thought about it as a concept before. It was just how I saw life. When I see challenges, I don't see them as challenges. When I see problems, I get excited because I'm like, okay, great, I get to learn something new now. Like, so I'm going to enjoy that rather than see that as a blocker. Even if I have a bad day, I try to see that as I try to see it as, it's okay that I've had a bad day. It means that I have feelings and I can feel bad days. Therefore, I'm going to use that to progress onto something else. So I think that's what it's about. It's about perspective and how you see problems, how you choose to then try and change things when you've hit a problem, whether it makes you stop or helps you to go on.
And would you say that, obviously, being in the software engineering sort of like line of work, that you have to be applying a learning attitude, because things are always changing, and it can sometimes be frustrating? So how would you suggest people kind of keep on top of what's happening? Is it being in communities? Is it just going on Stack Overflow, or what would you suggest?
So yeah, I think that growth mindset, without having one in tech, I don't think you need one. So I'm not going to say you need one, because people are different, and I wouldn't want to say that one person wouldn't work because they're not thinking about learning things all the time. They could become really, really good in a particular technology, and that's great. But the reality is that in tech, new things come out constantly. New libraries come. You might know a language really well, and then they introduce a new language, a new library, and then all of a sudden everything changes and you've got to learn it. And if you're stuck in your ways with that, it's going to really hinder you to learn new things, to be able to then be on new projects and I don't know, take the benefits of new things that come out in tech as well. So I think that it is really useful to have a growth mindset in that space, and then use Google. Know that you can learn new things. Be excited when you hit a challenge, because it's something that you're then going to be adding to your portfolio of things that maybe try building something in a language that you've never used before, because at the end you've built something that's brand new and it's amazing, but you've also learned a new language that you can use on new things, and you've got some evidence of it as well. So I would say that it's really useful for being able to develop your skills. If you have a fixed mindset, that means that you could probably be really good at being an expert in a language, and you might be really valuable to the company at a really specific point in time. But a growth mindset might enable you to work on more projects and do more things with that sort of mindset.
Nice. And do you have a particular tip that you'd like to share, or anything else you'd like to add to that?
To around how to continue that learning?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I would sort of say is, if you want to learn something new, and if you're already comfortable with programming and you want to learn something new, try and do a project to develop that skill. Try and use that to grow your understanding of it. I think that really, really helps. If you want to learn a new language and you don't have an idea, or you don't have anything to build through that language, it can be really, really hard to get started. It can be really hard to give the language that you're learning any context. So I think that having a project, trying to come up with a project, if you can't think of a project, look up open source and see if you can do anything there to try and just learn more and get involved in more languages that way, because you can get to a real sticking point if you follow a tutorial and you get to an end and there's nowhere else to go. So then try and move it into a project, and you can always build in a project. There's always things you can build in projects. Like, you can literally just build the same thing forever and never stop. So yeah.
Okay. We had a question from the floor, which I'm going to ask you, and that is, do you have any aspirations to build your own software company in the future?
Absolutely. So I already have I was a contractor for 5 years, which I didn't mention when you asked me about my life. I completely forgot that. I was a contractor for 5 years, so I already have a company that I contract through. And I would one day like to be able to do some, like get some work for other people to do with that. I'm not certain what will happen there, but it would be nice to do that one day. Also, my dad has a software company, and it would be nice to get involved there more if I could one day. But ultimately, I also really I really like my day job, so it makes it really hard. So I'm currently a lead engineer at a company called MadeTech, and I'm running their academy program, and that for me is so fulfilling that it then makes it really hard to. I could have an aspiration, but I love my day job, so it makes it really hard to jump out and do something else. But somebody else can do it, and I'll watch it on the side.
Well, we'll watch this space because you never know who could reach out to you, Charlene, and encourage you to take that leap.
I know.
Okay, cool. So I'm just going to ask you a quick question about my book, which is a sneak preview of. So what did you think? Any tips that you'd like to share from the book?
Yeah, so when I was reading your book, I did think that there was a lot that resonated with me. The key thing that not just you, not just the book, but everybody talks to me about all the time, burnout, number one, always talking about burnout. So you mentioned in there being a Black superwoman and how burnout can relate to that. So I always think that I can do everything and that I should be able to do everything, and nothing should make me stop being able to do everything. And the only place that can realistically take you to is burnout, really. If you think that you can do everything and you try to do everything without any support from anybody else, you're just going to hit like a block at some point. And you kind of mentioned bits around, having like physical reactions that make you kind of think, oh, something's happened, but it's fine. I can just work through it. Like earlier this year, I lost my shoulder. One of my shoulders like just stopped working for a few days, and I was like, it's fine. I'll type with one hand, and I'll only do video calls, and I just won't do any like emails today. And it's like, no, you can actually take a rest. Like your body's saying this arm doesn't work anymore because it doesn't want to. It wants to have a break. And I think sometimes it's really, really important to listen to what your body says. I had burnout a few years ago in one of my jobs where I was working like all hours of the night, and I was working till like 2 a.m. every night. And then eventually, like, I remember going to my boss and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. But I'll just tell you that what I really want is that maybe on my way home, my leg gets stuck on the bus and then the bus tears off my leg, but I still have my mind intact, but I can just be at home for a while." And he was like, "I think you should go home. Please go home." And I was like, "Oh, but then it's like failure. Am I failing?" And he was like, "No, like you need a rest, so you should go home." And I think that sometimes you just have to listen. And that's what you were saying. It was essentially listen, like make a plan. What are you going to do about it? Ask for help, that sort of thing. And so a lot of those sort of things really resonate with me because I'm definitely someone who wants to do everything. And then, I have to figure out what I can say, somebody else should do that. Let's delegate what we can out to other people, and but then keep on going forward as well.
No, absolutely. Thank you for sharing your insights there, because I agree. It's really hard with wanting to do everything and having so much energy and enthusiasm for what you're doing. So I'm sure that we have learned a lot from that. So let us just, before we wrap up, just ask you, how is it that you keep yourself energized when you have a tough day and you keep yourself learning? What is it that you do to push through that? Like, I just don't want to do it.
So when I have a tough day, I let myself do nothing. I let myself have a rest. So I turn everything off, close my laptop, maybe put on a rubbish film on TV, I'll put something awful on and just lie down and let myself enjoy it. That's like ultimately one of the first things that I do is just let myself have that moment of feeling like it's a tough day, because that's okay. Like not every day is going to be perfect. But then after the day has passed, I try to make sure that I can set things up to not have those things happen again. So for example, last week I had a bad day where it was just the longest day and I was exhausted. So I've set my calendar up now so that I've booked in times where I'm not allowed to have any meetings, and I've booked in times where I go to the gym so that I make sure that I'm getting that self-care as well. So I think that's it. Like when I've had a tough day, I try to manage it after I've let myself have that bad day, let myself feel what I need to feel, cancel what I need to cancel, but then put something in action for after that day's passed.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, because I think a lot of people are like scared and feel worried about giving themselves permission to like feel, bad, or then actually take action to like actually stop that issue or the stressor. So it's good that you have been a prime example to help us to actually to stick to that and do it. So that is really awesome. So I just want to actually finally ask you more about what's coming up with Coding Black Females, what programs are open, what's happening for 2020. Go for it.
Yeah, so we're really excited. So for the rest of this year, we've got loads of events. So we had a really lovely schedule for Black History Month, which has been an event every week so that people can again see more Black women in tech doing awesome stuff, learn new skills and develop themselves as well. And what we plan to do next year is more events. So we're going to continue having events every 2 weeks, which is what we do currently. But we want to make sure that we've got more programs in place as well so that people can learn new skills over a long period of time. We launched a boot camp earlier this year. We plan to run that boot camp again next year. So we're currently training 50 Black women over 6 months to become software developers, which is amazing. And we really want to run that boot camp. We really want to run again. So we plan to do more of the same, really. It's going to be focused on skills development and visibility of Black women in the industry as well.
Okay, awesome. And what kind of partnerships are you looking for 2020? Like what kind of companies are you looking to work with?
We're looking to work with companies who want to make sure their companies are doing the right thing. So companies who want to hire Black women, which all companies should want to hire Black women, because it wouldn't make any sense if they didn't, because they're part of the population. So so companies who want to make sure they're hiring correctly, they're the sort of companies that we want to work with so that we can come up with the right strategies with them. So generally we'll try and do events together. We'll try and then put them on our job board so that people can see, what roles they have available. We'll want to just engage the companies as much as we can and have the companies engage with the community so that people know who's hiring them. We also are looking for companies who provide services, so people who might provide training to the community as well. We really want to, we're already doing it, focusing on those companies and seeing how we can provide more training opportunities to the women in our community too. So companies who want to hire, companies who really want to support the community, and then also companies who do the training, because we want to work with you as well.
Brilliant. Okay.
Basically everyone. We want to work with everyone.
Yes. She said it. Reach out, everyone.
Everybody.
So I just want to wrap up by saying thank you so much, but also I want you to tell everyone how they can connect with you, where they can find you, and all your awesome programs.
Absolutely. So for Coding Black Females, you can find us online. That's sent, if you just Google Coding Black Females, you should find them. But on most social media platforms, it's Coding Black Females. So you'll find us there. And then myself, I'm Charlene P. Hunter on all platforms as well. So you can find me there. So yeah, that's how you find me. And that's how you find us too. It's been really fun.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Charlene. It has been a pleasure. We have learned so much about your career and inspired us with your energy and your your honesty and authenticity around, sharing about, bad days to burnout, because burnout is tough.
Yeah, it is.
And it's so good to swap stories and for everyone to know that it's okay to sometimes just be in that place and then, rebuild the next day, but make sure we take action to actually resolve the problem and not just let it linger and linger and linger forever in a day. So thank you so much and take care. Speak to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.